regarding the negative aspects of kavod, right? And how ultimately, again, a person who has a taiva for kavod, a desire for honor, such a desire becomes the fundamental undoing of an individual. He goes on, Kamaheim, Shemis'anim Berav, V'yashpilu es atzmam le'his parnes min atzdaka, v'lo yis'asku b'malacha shelo tiyeh mechubedes beinehem, mir asam penyimat skvodam. So we'll listen to this incredible idea. It says, how many people suffer in poverty because they won't take a job that they feel is beneath them, because the employment that they are offered is an affront to their kavod, to their honor, to their dignity. He goes on, he says, Yesh lecha holelos gadol mizeh. And I will say, this is my sin b'chol yom, where people go ahead and put their kavod even before their own personal self-interests. So to us it sounds crazy, right? How could you do that? Person has a choice between having some money, right, and having to do something a little bit beneath their dignity, versus having no money but having your kavod intact. Who would choose kavod over money? And the answer is plenty of people. Also, a while ago, this is going back a number of years, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, actually quite fascinating. This is managed going back a good number of years, maybe even 7-8 years ago, but it stuck with me. It was so there was one of these boutique investment firms that did not have a particularly good year. Didn't have a good year, so the end of year bonuses were a bit schwach. So they had a great chap. So they didn't give out bonuses that year, but what did they do? They gave everyone new titles. New titles. You're the director of this. You're the senior vice president of office supplies. They gave everyone titles. So we'll see. You want to hear the you want to hear the crazy thing? The crazy thing is that when they conducted a survey, an internal survey of employee satisfaction, it skyrocketed after that year. So, which is an incredible idea, that somehow they made people happy with titles, even though they didn't get money, right? Financially, things remain the same, but they got kavod. They're both saying that's not a bad thing. But it's incredibly telling about how important kavod is to us, and how sometimes, even when faced with a decision between money, between livelihood and kavod, sometimes people will still choose kavod. So the Ramchal says, how many times does it happen that a person is undergoing difficult financial times, and again they're offered an opportunity, but they feel the opportunity is beneath their station, beneath their dignity, and they'll pass on it. And you'll say, what? You have a choice between having parnasa versus having dignity, or kavod. It's not dignity, it's the wrong word. Kavod, right? And you go ahead and you choose your kavod. Says Ramchal, it sounds crazy, but people do it. V'yoser Yirtzu bevatala hamavi l'idei shimum v'lidei zima, and sometimes I will say people even choose batala. We'll say, this even contemporarily, this is a challenge, even in certain segments of the frum community, where sometimes for whatever the reason going to work is stigmatized. It's something negative, and so people live in poverty. They don't have to live in poverty. They don't have to live in poverty. They have the opportunity. But again, the notion of a ben Torah, or the notion, and again, not making generalizations, but it's a challenge that has to be understood, where sometimes, again, a person is forced into poverty because if they work, it goes ahead and somehow impacts their kavod, their dignity, their standing. Says the Ramchal, craziness. How could a person allow that to happen to themselves? And again, sometimes I will say, again, without work, a person gets themselves into all kinds of trouble. Shimum, we'll say shimum literally means insanity, right? Insanity, kind of after the way you feel after a protracted family vacation. Right? So I'll say, you're yearning for work, right? Put me back to work, right? Just let me I'll do anything at this point in time. Zima, immorality. We'll say a person with too much time on their hands gets themselves into all kinds of trouble. Gezel, theft, v'lidei kol gufei averus, shelo lahashpil ma'alasam ulahavzos koda hamaduma. And a person gets themselves into all of this whole mess. Why? Kavod, because it's beneath my dignity, it's beneath my station to do certain things. It's not bakavadik for me to do this. not bakavadik for you to do this. First of all, again, who went ahead and said you deserve so much kavod, right? Who says you need so much kavod? And sometimes it's not about your kavod, but it's ultimately, again, about getting the job done in life. V'amnam, chachaminu zichron livracha, asher harunu v'hidrichunu tamid b'darchei emes, amru, ehavis hamalacha usnas harabanos. We'll say that's what Chazal said in Pirkei Avos, a very important teaching. Love work. People sometimes misunderstand this to mean love work and hate Rabbanim. Snavs Rabbanos doesn't mean hate Rabbanim. Snavs Rabbanos, we'll say in this context, means kavod, right? Lofty positions. Love work and despise lofty positions. So we'll say, or in other words, in life, it is so much better to be the person who gets the job done, even if no one knows your name, than to be the person where everyone knows your name, right? But lemaisa, you don't accomplish all that much. So be the person who's the worker. Be the person who's willing to roll up his sleeves. Be the person who's willing to get the job done. Don't worry about your kavod. Don't worry about your reputation. Don't worry about who knows and who doesn't know what it is that you're doing. Ahavis hamalacha usnas ha'abanos va'amru od. Pshot, there was incredible Gemara. Pshot nevelta b'shuka v'lo timar gavra rabba ana kahana ana. Better to go ahead and skin carcasses of dead animals in the marketplace and never say, I am too great, I am too important. So I guess the profession of skinning carcasses in the marketplace wasn't exactly like the most bakavadik form of work. But yet, this is what Chazal are saying. Better to make an honest living, even skinning carcasses in the marketplace, and never say that honest work is beneath you. An incredible yisod. Now again, it doesn't, obviously, we want to push ourselves to be successful and want to push ourselves to perform at the level that we're capable of performing at. But lamaisa, what it means is honest work is honest work. And never ever say that honest work is beneath you. Because Rabbi say at the end of the day, making a difference, engaging in honest work, getting the job done is so much more important than any kavod. Va'amru od, li'olam ya'avod adam avodah she'zara lo, v'yitzarech lebrius. We'll say another Gemara, all incredible Gemaras. Gemara says that a person should go ahead. This is actually interesting. There's a version of this Gemara that says, li'olam ya'avod adam avodah zara. That's the first gears in the Gemara, which literally translated means a person should rather worship avodah zara than to have to rely on other people. To which the Gemara says, what? Right? What? A person should rather worship avodah zara than rely on other people? No, the Gemara says, no. We mean avodah zara in a different context. Li'olam ya'avod adam avodah shehi zara lo. Better for a person to do work that is alien to him. In other words, work that I feel is a bit beneath me, and not have to be dependent on other people. But at the end of the day, the greatest thing in life is self-sufficiency. That's the greatest gift, the greatest bracha in life is to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And sometimes in order to do that, it might your kavod might take a hit, right? You might have to end up going ahead and doing things that you feel are not within your station, things that perhaps are a bit underperforming for you, things that are not as bakavadik. Better to stand on your own 2 feet. Better to do avoda shehi zara lo. Better to skin the carcasses in the shuk, in the marketplace, but to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. An incredible Gemara. Klal Dvarim. So we'll say we'll complete this section. The klal is, the general principle is hakavod hu min hamichshalos hayos gedol mashal adam. Kavod, or should better stated, the need for kavod, the need for honor, is one of the greatest obstacles that stand in front of man. The afshar lo, so also what this is saying is the quest for kavod is something that is the greatest obstacle, prevents us from growth, prevents us from progressing. He goes on, he says, "Vi afshar lo lihyos eved ne'eman lekono, kol zman shuchas al kavod atzmo." It is impossible to be a true servant to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as long as I am preoccupied with my own kavod. Ki al kol panim yitztarich lema'it v'chvod shamayim mipnei sichluso. Because also when a person becomes preoccupied with his own kavod, so ultimately again his kavod becomes primary, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kavod becomes secondary. Zehu ma shamar David HaMelech alav shalom. V'nekalosi od mizos vayisi shafal be'enai. V'akavod ha'amiti Eino ela yidias hatzavos. So we'll stop over here. We'll finish. So again, we'll say. So at this point in time, the Ramchal has kind of completed discussing the negative aspects of kavod. Ultimately, again, discussing how it is an incredible stumbling block to personal growth. We'll do the end of the parak in Meretz Hashem tomorrow, where he discusses what true kavod is and where true kavod comes from. Shkoyach. All right, Shabbosai, good morning. Let's begin. A lot to do today, Baruch Hashem. Today's daf is Mem Beis. We are starting on Mem Aleph Amud Beis 41b, and we are starting at Tanu Rabbanan. We'll say which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 lines up from the bottom. Our shir this morning is dedicated by our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, by Josh and Becca Friedman, Le'iloi Nishmas, Josh's father, Yisrael Yehuda ben Rav Chaim Rafal, on the occasion of his first yahrzeit, and by Sami and Malka Esterson, Le'iloi Nishmas, Malka's parents, Yitzchak Leib ben Aaron HaKohen, Yisrael Rachel Bas Baruch, and Sami's mother, Hinda Bas Henach Ephraim. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah, and the family's ein nechama. And I will say with that, let us begin. An incredibly wonderful daf today. So Tashma, Tanabana, Bivsara. So we'll say, so the pasuk says, Bivsara. Milamed, we already started this drasha yesterday. Milamed, Shematama Bifnim Kibachos. So we'll say, Bivsara teaches me that halacha l'maisa. Now again, this is specifically referring to Niddah, as we're going to see in just a moment. But Bivsara teaches me the concept that halacha l'maisa, even before the blood exits the body, halacha l'maisa, the woman is already tameya. So remember again, in Hilchos Niddah, what that means is, as soon as the blood is dislodged from the uterus, even if it still remains in what we call the pruzda, the vaginal canal, and has not yet exited the body, halacha l'maisa, she is tameya. So ainli ela Niddah. I only know that applies to Niddah. Zava minayin. How do I know that it applies to Zava as well? Talmud lomar Zova bivsara. Because the pasuk says, ultimately again, flows within her flesh. So from that phrase, we learn that it applies to Zava as well. Polates shechvas zera minayin. So it's an interesting halacha. How do I know that this is true also regarding a poletes shechvas zera? That halacha l'maisa, after relations, a woman goes ahead and emits seed, right? The zera of her husband. So how do I know that that's also mitam? Talmud lomar yihiyeh. That halacha l'maisa, the Gemara says, the pasuk says yihiyeh, to teach me that she's metame bifnim kibachutz. For Rabbi Shimon says no. Daya kibala. Rabbi Shimon disagrees on this last point and explains that a woman should be no different than her husband in regards to shechvas zera. How so? Ma bala inu metame achetet se tu maluchutz. Both say just like her husband is only metame with shechvas zera when it exits his body. Af hi inu metame achetet se tu masaluchutz. So too she will only be tameya when the zera exits the body as well. The Rabbi Shimon, so we'll say, see, that's Rabbi Shimon's logic. So Rabbi Shimon will agree with Niddah, he'll agree with Zava, that halacha l'maisa, in these particular cases, it's metame bifnim kibachutz, but will disagree with shechvas zera, and will say that she could be no more chamer than her husband, just like her husband only becomes tamei al shechvas zera when the zera leaves his body, so too she should only become tamei when the zera leaves her body as well. Does Rabbi Shimon really hold that her status should be like her husband's? After all, v'hatanya v'rachatzu b'mayim v'tamu ada erev. The pasuk says that ultimately, again, they will literally immerse in water and become tamei until the evening. So we'll say the context over here is the isha asher yishkav ish osa shichvas zera. So we'll say the pasuk over here is talking about the fact that after a couple engages in relations, halacha l'maisa, they both become tameim. Now remember, again, it's a relatively lighter form of tumah in that it's only tumas erev. They have to go to the mikvah and they become tahorim that night. Amar Rabbi Shimon says, "V'chi What does this come to teach us? If it comes to teach us that if there's physical contact with shechva zera, they become tameim. Harei kavar ne'amar lemata o ish. The pasuk already teaches that later. Teaches that to us later on. Ela mipnei shetumas beis hastarim hi. Rather, also what the pasuk is going to teach us is as follows. I might have thought that halacha lemaisa, a woman should not become tamei as a result of shechva zera. Why not? Because they'll say it's what's called tumas beis hastarim, right? It's tumah that occurs in what we'll call hidden or hidden parts of the body, right? The zera is emitted inside of her. And as such, again, tumas beis hastarim in general is not tamei. Nevertheless, tumas beis hastarim ain't metameh. Elish exeres hakasavhi. Shabbos say, so interestingly enough, what the pasuk is teaching me is as follows. I might have thought that a woman should not become Tameya as a result of Shechvas Zera from Bia. Why not? That's what's called Tumas Beis Hastarim. That's Tumah that occurs ultimately again in hidden parts of the body. And in general, we hold that Tumah that occurs in hidden parts of the body does not convey Tumah. But yet, again, it's a Chiddush in the Torah that she does become Tameya as a result of Shechvas Zera. And I will say, now remember again, the point is now we have a contradiction. Because Rabbi Shimon said before that Daya Kiboala, a woman should be more chamer than her husband. Just like he only becomes Tameh when the Zera leaves his body, so too she should only become Tameh when the Zera leaves her body. Yet what do we see from this limud over here? That she's Tameh when the Zera is inside of her body. So which one is it? Lo kashya, kan b'mishameshes, kan b'poletes. Two different cases, I will say. One case is talking about as a result of relations, that as a result of relations she becomes Tameh, even when the Zera is inside of her. That's the Chiddush of the Torah. The second case now about poletes, when she becomes Tameh as a result of emitting the seed. To which one says, what? Poletes, teifok leida shimsha. They both say, now the only way that a woman could be a poletes, that she could emit seed is how? Is if she had relations. To which the Gemara says, bishetavla l'shimusha. What's the case? The case is where she had relations and then she went to the mikvah afterwards. L'meimra. Is that to tell me the mishameshes betumas erev sagila? Is that to tell me that again, when a woman has relations, it results in just a more minor form of tumah, tumas erev? To which Rava says, mishameshes, if a woman has relations, kol shlosha yamim asura lecho b'truma. Both say fascinating halacha. So the Gemara says like this. Rav says, when a woman has relations, so assuming, let's say again, that she is the wife of a Kohen, she can't eat truma for 3 days after relations. Why not? She afshar lo shelo tiflot. There's a concern that within 3 days after relations, what's going to happen? She is going to emit seed. And if she emits seed, if she emits zera, then halacha l'maaseh she becomes tameya. To which I will say, so you see over here that the resulting tumah from relations is not just in the immediate aftermath, but could span 3 days. Hachama what's the case? This is interesting. Shid biluha b'mita. The case of us that we're dealing with over here is she immersed in the mikvah while still lying on the bed. They immersed her. As well, say what we're trying to figure out over here is a case where a woman could immerse for the tumah that's a result of bia, but yet not have to worry about poletes shechvas zera. So that case, essentially what happened is if halacha l'maaseh she had relations and didn't move. In that case, again, we assume the zera remains inside of her and doesn't immediately come out of her. Therefore, if you were to immerse her while on the bed, halacha l'maaseh she would be tahora. To which the Gemara says, Michlal. The Chisra says, so just understand, the Gemara is not espousing an actual case. The Gemara is trying to create a halachic reality in which a woman could be toveles for the tumah as a result of bia and not have to worry about poletes shechvas zera. Michlal dechi ka'amar Rava da azla'i bikara v'tavla. So is that, you're telling me then that Rava is talking about a case where she went literally on foot to be toveles in the mikvah, in which case once she's walking then there's a concern for poletes shechvas zera. Dilma bahadi de ka'azli shadise. Maybe as she's walking, ultimately again the zera will come out of her top of membase. V'chi tema dilma ishtayer. And furthermore, again, don't you have to be concerned that some of the zera remains inside of her? If that's the case, the Gemara should have said that Rechoshesh, that perhaps some of the zera remains inside of her. Rather, Rava would also set this up as a case of where they immersed her on the bed. In other words, while she was still laying down and didn't move. velo kasha, and Rabbi says there's no contradiction. Kan b'misapeches, kan b'she'ena misapeches. So Rabbi says, so just to understand what's happening over here, the Gemara is just trying to come up with a case of where a woman could become tmeah, not where a woman. Here's what we know: a man and woman both become tmeim as a result of relations, which is actually quite a fascinating concept, right? That here is a permitted act that ultimately again results in tumah. Granted, it's the lightest form of tumah, right? It just results in tumas erev. You go to the mikvah. Ultimately, again, she becomes tahora that night. So it's actually quite fascinating. But nevertheless, halacha l'maaseh, they both become tameim. Now she becomes tameah as a result of two things. Number one, the bia itself. Number two, the concern of poletes shechvas zera. That concern, that now I will say, so remember, the reason we're in this topic is because the question is, at what point in time does the zera convey tumah? So Rabbi Shimon wanted to say that halacha l'maisa, she is no different than her husband. Just like her husband ultimately again only becomes tamei al shechva zera when it exits the body, she too will also only become tameah when it exits the body. So I'll say, so we really have two different states here. Everyone agrees that as a result of biyah, she becomes tmeah. That's true even when the zera is inside of her. But additionally, there's an additional concern over the next couple of days that if she emits that zera, she will become tmeah as well. All the Gemara is trying to do over here is show cases where halacha l'maisa, technically speaking, she can go to the mikvah as a result of the biyah, even before the poletes shechvas zera issue has set in. So, for example, lokasha kama misapeches kan b'she'ena misapeches. So Rava will say again, the distinction will be if she turns over, if she doesn't turn over. If she turns over, dislodges the zera, then there's a concern of poletes shechvas zera. If she doesn't, then halacha l'maisa, we assume that the zera remains in place. Rava akraikai, and Rava is commenting on the pasuk v'achikam. This is what he means to say: Ki kasev rachman levarachatzu b'mayim v'tamu es ha'ara v'tamu ad ha'erev. When the pasuk says they shall immerse in water and they become tameim until the evening, b'she'ena misapechas. That's ultimately again where she remained in place. She did not go ahead and turn over, and therefore did not dislodge the zera. If she did not dislodge the zera, then Rabbi says she can get to the mikvah ultimately for the biyah and doesn't have to worry about poletes shechva zera. However, again, avab misapeches kol shloshi yamim asrur le'echal b'truma. But halacha l'maisa, once there's movement, there would be a concern that poletes shechva zera, and for 3 days after biyah, halacha l'maisa, she would not be permitted to go ahead and eat truma. Why? She afshar la shelo tiflot. Because Rabbi say again, ultimately again, it's impossible that she will not emit something. So Rabbi says halacha l'maisa, the Gemara understands as follows. There's a Gzeras HaKosav that says that as a result of relations, she is Tameah. When you say they're both, meaning they're both Tameim, we're focusing on her right now because ultimately, again, it's the Tumas Beis HaStarim that is the subject of our sugya. But both husband and wife are both Tameim after an act of biyah. It is a lowest form of tumah. Only tumas erev requires them to go to the mikvah by day and just wait until nightfall, and then they are once again tahorim. In addition to that, there's a concern of poletes shechva zera, which halacha l'maisa says that for 3 days after the act of relations, when the zera is still considered to be viable, that zera conveys tumah. And if she were to go ahead and emit that zera, she would once again become Tameh. Now, we'll say again, it's going to be the lowest form of tumah, what we call tumas erev. Good. Rabbi Shmuel bar Bisna me'abayim. So also Rabbi Shmuel bar Bisna asked Abaye the following shayla. Poletes shechva zera, interesting shayla. Roa havya ono ga'as havya. So this is actually quite fascinating. If a woman emits zera, so remember again, she's had relations with her husband. Again, she became tameh as a result of relations. This is about post that. Now she emits some of the zera afterwards. What's the nature of that tumah? Is that what we call roa, or is that nogas? They're both saying, now, we've actually spoken about this before. Look at Rashi. Roa havya mishum ri'iyah. So both say, now what this literally means is as follows. When she's polet shechva zera, this is quite fascinating. Is this considered to be a discharge? Is it discharge tumah? And remember, so we'll say, what's discharge tumah? For example, discharge tumah will be like niddah, will be like zava, or is it maga tuma? So is the concern over here that she's having a discharge, or is the concern over here that halacha lamaisa, she's coming into physical contact with something that is tamei? So we'll say, for example, if it's maga tuma, what would it be like? We actually had this, but what would it be like? It would be like sheretz. It would be like sheretz. It would be no different ultimately again than her touching a sheretz. So we'll say that's the fundamental shay. Look at Rashi. Roa havya mishum re'iyah tamei kra umishum no gas b'shich zera dat hashta havya negia space asar v'la havya tamei ela bayom ela biyom tashish gzeres hakasa v'chipalta niga labrayim matamia. So we'll say, here's the shayla. Says to consider when he say roa literally means to see, but in this context, roa really means a discharge. Is it discharge tuma or is it maga tuma? To which the Gemara says, nafkamina, why would it matter? I'll tell you why. Listar, ulatame b'mashahun, ulatame b'fnim kibachutz. We'll say here are all the nafkaminas. This is incredible. Number one, listar. We'll say, let's say again, a woman is in the middle of counting her shivin ikiyim for zivus, right? So she's in the middle of counting shivin ikiyim for zivus, and she's poletas shichvas zera. She emits seed. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? The halacha is that if a woman has discharge tuma during her days, her shiva nikiyim, what happens? That ends the shiva nikiyim and she needs to start again. If she only experiences maga tuma during her shiva nikiyim, then what? She loses the day. She loses that one day, but not all the days before. So for example, it's a simple example of that. A woman is counting shiva nikiyim for zava gidola, and what happens? She touches a sheretz. We'll say, what's her status? She loses that one day, but does not lose the days beforehand. So we'll say, there's a major nafkamina, it's polata shechva zera. Is it maga or is it discharge? Number one, there's lose shiva nikiyim. Number two, l'tame b'mashu. We'll say next is, what about how much of an emission does a woman have to have in order to become tamea or not? So we'll say, so this depends. If halacha l'maisa it's a discharge tuma, then what? Then any amount ultimately again is problematic. Like we saw that in the Mishnah. There's no shear for niddah. There's no shear for zava. So if again polata shichva zera is a discharge tuma, then halacha l'maisa any amount is problematic. As opposed to maga tuma requires a shear. Like for example, we'll say a sheretz is only problematic if the sheretz is of a certain size. Next, ulatame bifnim kibachutz. And we'll say lastly, the last nafkamina will be if halacha l'maisa does woman become tameya even before the discharge has left her body. So if it's discharge tuma, like niddah and zava, so ultimately again a woman becomes tameya even before the discharge leaves the body, even while it's still inside. Masha'inkin, if it's maga tuma, right, if it's contact tuma, it's only tameya once it leaves the body. So we'll say three major nafkaminas. So manavshach, says the Gemara, well, I don't understand. What's the question? Ishmir la masnisin. So we'll say so remember this is Rav Shmuel bar Bisna asking the following question from Abaye. So I don't understand. So we'll say if Rav Shmuel bar Bisna learned the brisa that we just said before, right? We'll say what did we just look at Rashi? Masnisa the pligi rabban Rabbi Shimon the kami rabban polata shich vazar matam bifnim kibachutz the Rabbi Shimon dai kibal. We'll say we just spoke about this. Right? We just spoke about this in the brisa just before that we quoted on the Mem Aleph Amud Beis. We had a machlokus between Rabbi Shimon and the Rabbanon, namely about the status of poletes shechvas zera. So the Rabbanon hold that halacha l'maisa polete shechva zera is just like niddah and zava. Just like niddah and zava are tamea bifnim kibachutz, so too shechva zera will be tamea bifnim kimibachutz, which tells you that what? That it's discharge tuma. Rabbi Shimon said daya kibola. She should be no more chamer than her husband, just like the husband is only tamei when the discharge leaves his body. So she's only tamei when the discharge leaves her body. In which case, according to Rabbi Shimon, it sounds like what? It's tumas maga. Right? It's contact tuma. So I don't say, Rav bar Bisna, what's your shaila? Say if you heard the Mishnah, l'Rabbanan roa havya, l'Rabbi Shimon lo gas havya. It's very simple. According to the Rabbanan, I will say poletish shechvazer. According to the Rabbanan, is discharge tuma. According to the Rabbanan, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's contact tuma. V'ilo shmir le masnisin. I'm sorry. V'ilo shmir le masnisin. And if Rav bar Bisna did not learn the brayse above, mistabra no gas havya. I will say it would seem to be that the logical thing to say is that halacha l'maisa poletes shechva zera is tumas maga. is contact tuma. Now, Rabbi say, now why would the logical position be to say that it's tumas maga? Because also on a very simple level, this is something that is not from her. In other words, as much as she is discharging it, lemaisa, it came from her husband. So it's a substance that really is outside of her. So therefore, again, I will say generally when it comes to discharge tuma, those are discharges ultimately again that emanate inside of her. So therefore, again, bistabra, it would be that halacha lemaisa, it would be tumas maga. To which the Gemara says no. The olam shmiel mastis. Shmuel Rabbi Isna learned the brayso. Valiba de Rabbanan lo kami baile. And according to the Rabbanan is not a shayla. He understands according to the Rabbanan, ultimately again that the Rabbanan hold that halacha lemaisa shechvas zera is a discharge tuma. Why Rabbi say? Because it makes no difference where it came from. What matters right now is that it's inside of her body. Once something is inside of her body, it becomes part of her. Once it's become part of her, the fact that it originated from her husband doesn't make any kind of difference. That's the sheet of the Rabbanan. Ki kami baile. So we'll say, who does Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna have a shayla according to? Alibu de Rabbi Shimon. His shayla is in Rabbi Shimon. Ulatame bifnim. So we'll say, what's his shayla Rabbi Shimon? Ulatame bifnim kibachotz lo kami baile. So we'll show this according to. So he has no shayla about whether or not shechva zera is matay bifnim kibachotz, because ultimately again Rabbi Shimon holds daya kibala, that ultimately shechva zera does not convey tuma inside of her, only conveys tuma outside of her. So what's his shayla? Ki kami baile listar ulatame bechol shehu. So we'll say his shayla is ultimately again, what's the status of poleta shechva zera on obliterating the days of Shiva Nikiyim by Zava Gidola if she emits any amount. So Ki Kama Rabbi Shimon Daya Kibola, when Rabbi Shimon says that a woman should be no more chamer than her husband, Hani Mili Litamuye Bifnim Kibachutz, is he only saying that with regard to what? To say that halacha lemaisa, she should not become tamei while the shechva zera is inside, but only when it leaves her body, just like her husband. Avalistra ulatame bechol shura havya. But regarding again Shiva Nikiyim, he's going to treat poleta shechva zera like discharge tuma, and therefore again it will go ahead and destroy the Shiva Nikiyim. Al dilma loshna. Or maybe no, Rabbi Shimon is consistent with his shita throughout, and halacha lemaisa will say, that it is considered to be a maga, a contact tuma in every case. So in this version, Rosh Shmuel Bar Bisna's question was according to Rabbi Shimon. We know that the Rabbanan hold that halacha lemaisa, poletes shechva zera is a discharge tuma. That's what we know. So in the realm of the Rabbanan, poletes shechva zera is no different than Niddah and Zava. Okay, Rabbi Shimon, his shayla, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Bisna was in Rabbi Shimon. Does Rabbi Shimon hold that in every case, ultimately, again, poletes shechva zera will be a magatuma, or does he only say in certain cases it's maga, but in other cases, ultimately, again, it will be discharged? Ikadami, an alternate version of this. Liolam lo shmieli masnisa. Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna never heard the brayso that we said before. V'achi kami bayile, and this is what he was asking. Mida achmi rabbanan abali karyam b'sinai. Very interesting, because you know that the Torah was very chamer regarding bali karyan by Har Sinai. Also, we know what was the halacha by Har Sinai, that ultimately, again, there were shloshe simei hagbala. Why was there shloshe simei hagbala? Because it was a concern that if couples had relations, we didn't want the women to be emitting zera by Matan Torah. So therefore, there were 3 days where husband and wives had to separate prior to receiving the Torah. This way, if a couple had relations right before, she would emit all of the zera that had to be emitted, and by the time ultimately Kabbalah Satorah came, everybody would be tar. It's interesting that seems to be the only form of tumah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was machmir on by Matan Torah. Very interesting. So the Gemara says, Mida achmir rachmana balei karyam b'Sinai, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu was machmir by balei karyam b'Sinai, roa havya, then it must be what? It must be discharged tumah, since it's being dealt with in such a chamer way. Ol dilma lo gamrinon misinai d'chideshu, or maybe Rabbi say halacha lemaisa. The truth is you can't learn out what happened by Har Sinai. Why? Because what happened by Har Sinai was a chiddush, right? That's not the norm. That's an exception to the rule. After all, the hazavin u'mitzoraim dechamiri v'lo achamiri hurabbanan. Because we'll say, after all, think about this. There were no provisions made for zavin and mitzoraim by Matan Torah. No provisions made for that, for those people, right? About their Torah or anything else. Yet there were provisions made for Baalei Carrion. For Baalei Carrion. So it could very well be that Har Sinai is just an outlier, and therefore you can't learn anything. Amrlei Roa Havya. So to which he responded to him, the halacha is that carry, that ultimately, again, similarly, mission is Roa, is considered to be discharge Tumah. Discharge Tumah. But that seems to be how the Gemara is passing over here, that Allah Chalamai said is discharge Tumah. Asa Shaili the Rava. So they asked the Shaila to Rava, knew what's the status of a Baal Keri? Is it Roa? Is it discharge or is it Magya? Amalei Roa Havya. Asa Kamid Rav Yosef. Amalei Roa Havya. Hada Asa Kamid Abai. Amalei. So they keep asking all these Rabbanim. All the men say Roa, 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 Roa. It's discharge Tumah. So they came before Abai. Amalei. It literally means you're all spitting the same spit, which means you're all saying the same thing. Amrlei Shapir Amrlecha. Good retort. Ad kan lo kam Rabbi Shimon daya Kabbalah. We will say even Rabbi Shimon. When Rabbi Shimon says that a woman could be no more chamer than her husband, what does that mean? That refers to Ela Latami Bifnim Kibachutz. That refers ultimately, again, Rabbi Shimon is just stating that in regard to the fact that halacha lemaisa, Zera doesn't convey tumah until it exits the body. Just like for the husband, it doesn't convey tumah until it exits the body. So too for the wife, it won't convey tumah until it exits the body. But ultimately, again, to go ahead and ruin the days of Shiva Nekiyim, ulatame b'chol shehu, and to be metame with any amount. Ultimately, what's the halacha? Roehi. Halacha lemaisa. So Baal Keri is considered, or Keri I should say, is considered to be a tumas, a discharge tumah, and not simply a mago tumah. So I'll just share with you something interesting. So the Rambam in Sharavos Hatuma, in Parak Tes and in Parak Hey, writes as follows. Let me just read this to you. This Rambam. He says. Okay, let me just read to you that. Let me fine. I'll read to you the 12 very quickly. Man and woman, when they had relations, both become tamid. This is Parakei Halacha Tes. Ushneim rishon l'tumah din Torah. Ve'ena isha tmei mishum nagas b'shich v'azera. Shenegias b'esasam eina negia. Ela mishameshes harihi kiroa keri. So both say. So first of all, the Rambam paskins that halacha lemaisa again, that he holds, like the Gemara says over here, that the din of Tumas Keri is a din in Re'iyah, is discharge Tumah. Is discharge Tumah, right? Just like for the husband it's discharge Tumah, so too for the wife it is discharge Tumah. So to skip a little bit, so that's number one. Halacha l'maisa. So that's how the Rambam paskins. It's a din in roa, discharge, not a din in mage. I'm just skipping a little bit. In Halacha Yirav, the Rambam writes, Ha'isha shepalta shechva zera, in palta also besok shalosh. Oh no, sorry, to make roa keri. Lefichach so seres yom echad im haisa zava ki yishara keri umetame bechol shehu. Afa pishalo yatsa luchutz ela neekra v'yagia leben hashinaim nitmeis shar shichvas zera kidama. So kidama madama metame b'fnim ach shichvas zera shetiflo titame also b'fnim. So both say. So again, very quickly, just essentially halacha l'maisa. The way the Rambam paskins is that Tumas Keri is considered to be like Tumas Riyah. It is discharge Tumah. And therefore, again, it is metame bifnim kibachutz. It is metame even inside, even before it exits the body. And ultimately, again, it makes them a rishon l'tumah. The one part, interestingly enough, and we'll see this is going to come up later on, is that halacha l'maisa, when it comes to shiva nekim of a zav, if a woman is poleta shichvas zera, she only loses that day. She will not lose all of the days beforehand. So interestingly enough, although we are treating keri like tumas re'iyah, like discharge tumah, it will be treated like discharge tumah in every area except for shiva nekim. That if she has a discharge on one of the 7 clean days, she only loses that days and not the prior days. Good. Tana Abanam. Niddah v'azav v'shamersom kineged yom. So we'll say, here we go. Bryce says as follows. Niddah, zava, shemersom kineged yom, v'hayoledes, kulan temeos bifnim kibachutz. All of these women, Rabbi say, are temeos bifnim kibachutz, which means they become temeim even when the blood is inside of them, even before it has left the body. Or I shouldn't say blood, discharge. Bishlam akula l'chai. So I understand all of these cases, it makes sense. Ella yoledes, but I will say, what about the case of a woman who gives birth? Ibi me nida nida. Ibi me ziva ziva. There was an interestingly enough, when in terms of determining the status of a woman who has given birth, doesn't everything depend on what time of the month she is giving birth at, right? Is it the days of Zivus or is it the days of Niddah? Won't that ultimately determine the nature of the blood she is discharging? To which the Gemara says, "Lo tzricha sheyarda litbal mituma latara." So we'll say this is fascinating. What's the case here? She went to the mikvah. We'll say the case that we're dealing with over here. If you look at Rashi says there mituma latara. It's in the wide lines, about 6 lines in. Mituma latara la'achar shavu ayim b'karmalon kebeis hillel darim benos kusim amri b'benos kusim b'yomei utvila tar rachmana delo havi dam tar el la'achar tvila. So we'll say, listen to this. We pass like beis hillel, which means how do you transition from Yemei Tumah to Yemei Tara? How? 2 things. You need the passage of time and immersion in the mikvah. So for example, let's say she had a girl, so she's Tameah for 14 days. After those 14 days, what happens? Passage of time, and then she goes to the mikvah. So I'll say, now watch this case. What's the situation over here? What's the situation over here? Where she went to the mikvah to do her tefillah mitula tara. So the Gemara says, what's the case? V'chi hadam Rav Zera, Am Rav Chia bar Ashi, Am Rav, Yoled Shiyar, dalit. Listen to this case. Mitula tara, a woman gave birth. She's going to the mikvah to transition from her yemei tumah to yemei tara. V'nekar mimena dam biyarida. Both say, watch this. And as she's going down into the mikvah, what happens? Blood dislodges from the uterus, but is still inside of her, has not exited her body. So what's the halacha? Tmeya, birida tmeya. If the blood exited the uterus and is in the canal as she's going into the mikvah, she's tmeya, right? Ba'aliyah. But if the same thing happens, what? After she went to the mikvah and as she's coming out of the mikvah, blood dislodges from the uterus and is inside of the canal, then what's the halacha? Tahora. Now the logic behind that is quite simple. Before she goes to the mikvah, she's still tmeya. Therefore, again, remember when it comes to yoledes, even before the blood exits the body, once it has left the uterus and it's inside of the canal, then halacha l'maisa, that is considered to be as if she's had a discharge. So if that discharge occurs on the way down to the mikvah, ultimately again she's tmeya. If it occurs after she's immersed in the mikvah, she's entered into yemei tohar, she is tahora. Amli Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Zera, Birida Mai Tmeya. Why is it that when she goes down to the mikvah, she's going to be Tmeya? After all, Tumah Beluahi. Rabbi say, is this not considered to be what's called Tumah Belua? Tumah means absorbed Tumah. In other words, it's absorbed into the body. Amrlei Zil Shaile Rabbi Avin. The Asbere Nihile, the Karkish Le Bereshe. Midrasha. So he said, go ask this question to Rabbi Abin, because I explained this before Rabbi Abin. Rabbi Abin nodded his head to me in the base medrash. She liked my explanation. Azul Shali went and he asked, Amrlei, Asua kinevelas of tar. So I'll say, because they made this case, interesting comparison, they made this case of where the blood dislodged but is still inside of the body, like swallowing of the nevela of an oftar. The Rabbi say, what's the halacha when you swallow a piece of a nevelas of tahar, which means the carcass of a kosher bird, as soon as there's an amount of that in your throat, mitame bigodim bebeis habliya. It's metame bigodim. Ultimately, again, it conveys tumah to your clothing, right? As soon as that piece of oaf, as soon as that nevelas of tar is inside of your throat. So we'll say, what do you see from here? Now, again, when you're swallowing that piece of nevelas of tar, that is belua, that is literally swallowed or absorbed inside of your body. Yet what? It still conveys tumah. So what do you see from here? That even something that is quote unquote swallowed and absorbed inside of the body still conveys tumah. That's why halacha l'maisa is she's going down to the mikvah before she has immersed. If that blood has dislodged itself from the uterus, but is still inside of the body, it conveys tumah. To which the Gemara says, Midami, how can you compare these cases? Amud Beis, Midami, Hasam ein la tumah bochotz. So we'll say, here's the difference. Right? Over there in the case of Nevelas of Tar, we'll say the only way that Nevelas of Tar conveys Tumah is how? By being swallowed. In other words, we'll say if you touch a Nevelas of Tar, halacha l'maisa, that contact does not convey Tumah. It's only through swallowing. Hacha kinafik librai litmi. But in this case over here, by the blood that has become dislodged, once it exits the body, it does convey Tumah. Hachanami kishiyatza l'chutz. So I'll say, to which the Gemara says, you're right. What's the case? The case is where ultimately, again, the blood left the body. So we'll say, if you're telling me that it's a case that she's about to go into the mikvah and she bleeds before she goes into the mikvah, then of course she's tumeya, right? It's still yemei tumah. And if you're going to tell me the cases where she bled after she went to the mikvah, then of course she's tar because that's yemei toar. To which the Gemara said, what would you have thought? Migo de mahanya tefila ladam. You would have thought as follows. Since ultimately, again, going to the mikvah, ultimately, again, works for it. Migo de mahanya tefila ladam diika gavoi tahani nami lahai. So I'll say, since the tefillah in the mikvah goes ahead and what? Works for the blood that is still in the uterus at the time she immerses, I might have thought that ultimately, again, it should work for the blood that has been dislodged and is in the canal as well. Kamash malon, no. Kamashma, that's not the case. That Allah will say, if you have a situation where blood has dislodged from the uterus and is in the canal and it's there before she went to the mikvah, that blood will remain tameh. And ultimately, even immersion in the mikvah will not purify that blood. Shmaitin ifrik. So we'll say we've answered up our questions before. Ela yoledes. But what's the case of yoledes? Ibi me niddah. Ibi me ziva. We will say when it comes to yoledes, ultimately the status of her blood should depend on what time of the month or what part of the calendar week she's going ahead and giving birth at. Hacham asking what's the case? I will say it's actually fascinating. We're going to discuss this more. Beleda yeveshta. So we're talking about a case of a birth with no blood. A bloodless birth. What the Gemara calls a leida yeveshta. Rashi says, Deleka lo niddah v'lo zava. There's no blood at all, and therefore, again, I will say, the shaila is what's her status, because there's no niddah and there's no zava. Leida yeveshta, right? My mitami bifnim kiba chotziga. So we'll say, if that's the case, if it's a leida yeveshta, then what's the case of the discharge, or we'll call it the discharge, being metami bifnim, inside like outside? So we'll say, halacha l'maisa, again, there's no fluids, right? If it's a dry birth, then halacha l'maisa, again, there's no blood, there's no discharge. So what's the case? Interesting enough, kegon shahotzi vlad rosho chutz leprozdar. Now we'll say, what's the case? The case is where the baby's head emerged past the cervix and is inside of the prosdar, is inside of the vaginal canal. Ukid Rav Oshia. And I will say this reflects the view of Rav Oshia. The Amar Rav Oshia, Gzeira Shema Yotzi Havlad Rosho Chutz Leprozdar. We'll say, take a look at Rashi just a moment. Rashi says, Kigon Shotzi Vlad Rosho Chutz Leprozdar, Umolid, Vikamar Da'af Agav Da'kati Rosho Bithnim, so also we're going to say is as follows. Once the baby's head emerges into the vaginal canal, halacha l'maisa, it is as if what? The baby has been birthed. In accordance with whose opinion? Like Rabbi Oshia. What does Rabbi Oshia say next? Rashi then Rabbi Oshia, Beperek behema makasha, ahad is not isha shemes ubra b'soch me'eha. So we'll say if you have a situation where nebach, a woman lost the baby, but the baby died inside of her, right? Besoch me'eha. What happens? Upashta chaya es yada v'nagabo. The midwife inserted her hand and touched the fetus that was dead. So what happens? Hachaya tamea. Ultimately, again, the midwife becomes tamei as a result of tumas shiva, right? As a result of tumas meis. Va'isha tahora achiyetz avad. Interestingly enough, however, the mother will be tahora until the baby is delivered. V'havinan ba chaya amai tamea tuma beluahi. And we ask, why is it that the midwife should become tamea? After all, we'll say this is called swallowed up or absorbed tumah. In other words, the baby is still inside of the mother. V'rabboshia hach tumas chay midrabanan. Gezeira Shema Yotzi Vlades Rosho Chutz Leprozdar. Because Rosh Rabboshia said that what are we concerned about? We're concerned that maybe the baby's head entered into the vaginal canal, in which point it's considered to be birthed, in which case, again, if the midwife touched it, she would contract tumas meis. So also I said the point over here the Gemara is making is that according to Rabboshia, once the head is in the canal, halacha l'maisa, the baby is considered birthed. And I will say the Gemara gives a case like this. There was a man who came before Rav. This is actually quite interesting. So let's listen to this. The man asked Rava, can you give a baby a bris milah on Shabbos? Amrale, Shapir Dami. He said, so Rava said, yes, of course you can give a baby a bris milah on Shabbos. Rava is actually quite fascinating. Basar de Nafak, after the man left, Amar Rava, Salka Dachtcha Dahu Gavra Delo Yada Deshari Lemimhal B'Shabsa. Is there anyone who doesn't know you can give a bris milah to a baby on Shabbos? Azl Basrei. So Rava ran after the man. Amrle, Emale Izi Gufa de Uvda Hechi Hava. Tell me exactly what the circumstances of your shaila are. It's actually really quite fascinating. So meaning the man comes to Rav and says, Rebbe, can you give the baby a bris milah on Shabbos? Rav says, yes. After the man leaves, Rav says, why wouldn't he know that? So I'll say, first of all, it's an incredible insight into how when someone asks a question, this is not just, by the way, in terms of halachic shalas, but a lot of times in life, when people ask questions, sometimes you have to understand where they're coming from in the question that they're asking, right? What's the deeper context of the particular question? It's not just true when somebody's asking a halachic shaila. This is true a lot of times in life. It's true a lot of times in marriage, true a lot of times in relationships. People ask questions, but they're asking sometimes much more than just the stated question that they are asking. So he runs after the guy, he says, tell me exactly what happened. So he says, Amrale, he said to Rava, here's what happened. Shamis Vlad ditzavitz apanye demale shabsa. So my wife was in delivery, or I don't know if it does have to be his wife, but there was a woman in delivery on Erev Shabbos, and we heard the baby crying. We heard the baby crying on Erev Shabbos. Velo isyalid ad Shabsa. So it is incredible, but the baby wasn't delivered until Shabbos itself. So in other words, so apparently we heard the cries of the baby Erev Shabbos, but the baby didn't actually emerge from the mother until Shabbos. So we'll say Amrle, to which Rava responded, Hai hotzi rosho chutz leprozdarhu. So I'll say ultimately again, the fact that the baby was crying on Shabbos means it must be that the baby emerged into the vaginal canal already on Friday, even though the birth didn't occur until Shabbos. And therefore again, the halacha is this baby is considered to have been birthed when? On Friday and not on Shabbos. Therefore, you cannot circumcise this baby on Shabbos. So we'll remember again, it's only a milah bismana, only an 8th day bris that is doche Shabbos. But this baby ultimately again was considered to be halachically birthed already when? As a Friday. V'have milah shelo bismana, v'chol milah shelo bismana in mechalin alas haShabbos. So also this will be a milah shelo bismana, and again halacha l'maisa milah shelo bismana is not docha Shabbos. So pretty amazing. So I'll say, so therefore again the takeaway of this is Rabbi Shia, and Rabbi Shia holds that halacha l'maisa, the baby is considered to be birthed as soon as the head is in the prozor. Rabbi said, I remember, we don't paskin this way, right? We paskin that in order for birth to have occurred, what has to happen? There has to be some emergence of the head. Remember again, if the baby is born head first, then halacha l'maisa, as soon as the forehead emerges, the baby is birthed. If it's born feet first, if it's born breech, then it's the majority of the guf, right? But l'maisa, again, but Rabbi Oshi has this incredible shita that as soon as the baby is in the canal, ultimately, again, it's considered to be birthed. Ibai lahu. What's the interesting shaila? Osa makom shel isha belua havi o beis hastarim havi. So I'll say ultimately, again, the Gemara says as follows: Osa makom. Right. So I'll say no. So the makom ervan a woman is what is the status of that part of the body? Is it considered to be ultimately again balua? So I'll say. See, interestingly enough, balua means. See, we often use these terms interchangeably, but they really mean two different things. So tuma balua means a tuma that's tumuna, a hidden tuma, a tuma that cannot be seen, versus beis hastarim. So we'll say beis hastarim ultimately again means a tuma that is in a closed off part of the body, but still may be partially visible. So we'll say, so just to kind of give you a little bit of an afkamina. So for example, we'll say, so everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa, blood inside of the uterus, right, is called tuma blua, right? Meaning it's totally hidden, totally obscured. Let's say the ear, we'll say, could be something that's called tumas beis hastarim, because the ear is closed off, right? If you put something in the ear, it's closed off, but yet it still may be partially visible. So we'll say, so the shaila is ultimately again, osam makom, the makom ervan a woman, what is its status? Does that have the status of belua or beis hastarim? So the my nafkamina, we'll say, what would be the nafkamina? Someone chooses some crazy nafkaminas over here. Kigon shetachva la chaverta kezayis nevela ba'osam makom. So we'll say, let's say again, there was a kezayis of nevela ba'os samakum. So we'll say, so now what's the shaila? So the shaila is, does that nevela, right? What's the status of nevela ba'os samakum? I amrit balua havi. If you want to say that os samakum is considered to be totally hidden, havi tuma balua. Then ultimately again, the nevela will be tuma balua. So therefore, lo metama does not convey tuma at all. Vi amrit beis hastarim havi. But if you want to say that it's beis hastarim, then what? Rabbi saying nihid de b'maga lo metamya. Even though it will not convey tumas maga, nevertheless b'masa miha metamya. It will convey tumas masa. So we'll say, interestingly enough, tumas beis hastarim does not convey tumas maga, contact tuma, but will absolutely convey tumas masa, which is carrying tuma. Abai says, balua havi. Abai says, also welcome to tuma balua. Rava amar beis hastarim havi. Rava says, considered to be beis hastara. Beis hastarim. Amar Rava minan amin. Rava says, from where do I know this? Disanya. Ella mipnei shotumas beis hastarim. So we'll say, because we said in the Braisa that what? That also makom is considered to be tumas beis hastarim, or tumas beis hastarim lo metame, and tumas beis hastarim does not convey tuma. Ella shegzeres hakasafi. So we'll say, remember again, this is quoting back to the Braisa by shechva zera. So we'll say, normally we would say that what? When there's shechva zera inside of the woman, it's tumas beis hastarim. And therefore again, it shouldn't become tamei. But the Torah says shechva zera inside of the woman does become tamei. So you see from here that what? You see from here that halacha lamaisa, also makom biisha has a din of tumas beis hastarim. Abaye would interpret that brayse to mean chada va'od ka'amar. Abaye says the brayse means to say it's really two forms of tuma. Right? Chada the tuma beluahi. The truth is shichva zera inside of a woman is really tuma belua. Va'od afilu emtim salor tumas beis hastarim. And even if you want to say that it's only tumas beis hastarim, enamatame still shouldn't convey tuma. Elo shegzeres hakasafi, but rather again you have to say the fact that a woman becomes tamei or tumas shechva zera is exzeres hakasaf. Fine. So we should ask one more question. Makom nevelas of tar balua havi obeis hastarim havi. So we'll say another shaila. What about again? We'll say, remember, going back to tumas of tar. So going back to nevelas of tar. So we'll say, remember again, a person swallows a piece of a nevelas oftar, which means a kosher bird that died without shchita. It only conveys tumah when? If you swallow it. That's the only way that item conveys tumah. So we'll say, so the shaila is when you swallow it, is that considered to be tumas bolua or tumas beis hastarim? Lamai nafkamina. Rabbi say, what's the nafkamina? Kigon shetach of lo chavera kezais nevela soch piv. I will say someone put a kezais of this nevelas oftar into my mouth. If you want to say it's tuma balua, so then what? Tuma balua lo matamya doesn't convey tuma. So the Gemara says amrit beis hastarim havi. But if ultimately again it's tumas beis hastarim, he the memaga lo matame b'masa miya matame. Although it won't convey tuma b'maga, it will convey tuma b'masa. Abai amar balua, v'amar beis hastarim. Abai says tuma balua. Rava says it's beis hastarim. Amar Abaye. So we'll stop over here. We'll have to pick up a Meretz Hashem with this machlok is Abaye and Rava about throat tuma. Is throat tuma considered tuma balua or tumas beis hastarim? If it's tuma balua, then ultimately again no tuma. Tumas beis hastarim, no tumas maga, but it does have tumas masa. To be continued tomorrow.